Great. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We'll give it just another minute to allow some more attendees to join us. Let's just wait another minute. All right, okay. 10 people have joined in the last 10 seconds, so we'll just wait till 4:01. Thank you very much for joining us today. All right, perfect. Well, hello again, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this press conference. My name is Sophia Herder. I'm a communications officer at ADF International, and I will be moderating this press conference today. We are gathered here today following the hearing before the Finnish Supreme Court in the case of Päivi Räsänen, a case that has become one of Europe's most closely watched tests of free speech and freedom of religion. Dr. Räsänen is a member of the Finnish Parliament and former Minister of the Interior, and she has faced criminal prosecution simply for expressing her long-held Christian beliefs. Her case, which began over 6 years ago, raises profound questions about whether citizens in a democracy may share their faith convictions without fear of state censorship or punishment. And so joining us today are Päivi Räsänen, who is a member of parliament and the defendant in the case, Bishop Juhana Pohjola, co-defendant and publisher of the pamphlet that is at the center of one of the charges. Then we have Matti Sankamo, who is a Finnish criminal defense lawyer representing Dr. Räsänen before the court, and Paul Coleman, executive director of ADF International, who is part of Räsänen's legal team and Pohjola's legal team. We will begin with brief opening remarks by Dr. Räsänen, followed by short statements from the other three, and after that we will open the floor for questions from the press. You will later be able to raise your hands or also post your questions in the Q&A section. And in the Q&A section, I will repeat this again later, but you can upvote questions you want to be prioritized. So with that, I give the floor over to Päivi Räsänen to tell us a little bit about how today went and about the case in general. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. This day marks a significant moment, not only in my personal journey, but for the fundamental freedoms of every person, especially in Finland and also across Europe. More than 6 years ago, I shared a Bible verse on social media and took part in discussions about faith, marriage, and human identity. Those subjects that have always been part of open and respectful public debate. And for this, I was interrogated for more than 13 hours by the police and eventually charged with 3 criminal offenses under the section of our law dealing with war crimes and crimes against humanity. It is difficult to overstate how surreal that was. To see my faith, my conscience, and even the Bible itself placed on trial in a democratic nation, in my own country. From the very beginning, I have maintained, and also the lower courts have twice agreed, that I am innocent of any crime. I have not insulted anyone. I have not spread hate. I have simply spoken what I believe to be true out of love and conviction. My hope and my prayer throughout this process have been that Finland would remain a country where everyone, no matter their faith, can freely express their deeply held beliefs without fear of prosecution. And this case has never been only about me. It is about the freedom of speech and faith for all of us. The freedom to speak truthfully and respectfully about what one believes. It is the foundation of every free and democratic society. I'm very grateful to Matti Sankamo, my lawyer, and my entire legal team, to ADF International, and also to Bishop Juhana Pohjola, who has stood with me, and to all those around the world who have prayed, spoken up, and supported us. Your encouragement has really been a great source of strength. Today at court, once again, the concepts of sin and shame were discussed. Those concepts that are very deeply Bible-based themes and come from the book of Romans, chapter 1. And I once again had to discuss about my biblical views. Whatever the outcome of this trial is, my conscience is clear and my faith is firm. My hope is that this ruling will affirm the right of every person to express their beliefs freely, without fear and without punishment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Päivi, for that opening statement. And now I would like to briefly turn to Bishop Juhana Pohjola. Could you briefly tell us how today's trial went for you? And was there a point that you particularly wanted to bring across regarding your case?
Thank you for this opportunity and for your interest. I wanted to say in the court about the publication of this booklet, male and female, he created them, that publishing this booklet, religious pamphlet, belongs to the teaching of my church and to my pastoral office. So I'm called to publicly teach and defend Christian doctrine and ethics in society based both on the Bible and the natural law. And I pointed out that this pamphlet, the basic teaching, is shared widely across the Christian churches. And I explained that at no point I have understood that the booklet would contain any offensive hate speech, even though Christian proclamation in general can of course be perceived as offensive. And lastly, I pointed out that any possible conviction would not only stigmatize me and the Lutheran church body that I lead as criminals, but send a dangerous signal to all Christians and Christian denominations. And such an outcome would not contribute to building a genuinely free society proud of its rule of law.
Thank you very much, Bishop, for that. Then let's turn to Matti Sankamo, who already spoke a lot in court today. Could you tell us how you think today's proceedings went, and are you satisfied with the case you were able to make?
Thank you, Sophia. Well, the process was very different today compared to the previous two sessions at the district courts and the Court of Appeal. The prosecutor had changed. We had a new prosecutor, and interestingly enough, this prosecutor argued very differently than previous prosecutors. So a lot of the arguments laid before previous prosecutor were now changed. And so this session was very different than the earlier. This means that it went well, and the prosecutor seemed surprisingly passive for this to be a criminal case. It's very unique that a prosecutor would not ask a single question of the defendant. Oh, so this is what happened. The prosecutor didn't ask a single question and only argued in a very abstract level. So this was very interesting, very different. I think we got our arguments presented well to the court, but it was very different from previous sessions.
All right, thank you very much. And then finally, let's turn to Paul. Paul, we've been at this case for over 6 years now. Can you tell us a little bit, now that we've reached the highest court in the country, just shed some light on what the broader implications of this case are, to remind us?
Thanks, Sophia. Yeah, 6.5 years. I was thinking today, 13 hours of criminal police interrogation, 4 criminal charges, 3 court hearings, 11 judges. Goodness knows how much money the state has spent on this prosecution. It really has just been an extraordinary process, grueling, really. It's gone on for so many years now. And the implications are huge, because at the heart of the case is clear Christian teaching on matters of social importance and the deeply held beliefs of many faithful Christians. And so if the prosecutor is ultimately successful in overturning these previous not guilty verdicts, then it won't just be Päivi's tweet from 2019 or her booklet from 2004 that will ultimately be considered criminal, but there is countless other materials in Finland that would be considered criminal as well. And then thinking beyond Finland, as we defend clients all across Europe and around the world, we've not yet seen a case reach the highest court of a land where the actual concept of the theological concepts like sin are considered hate speech, or where the words of the Bible are being put on trial. And so again, if the prosecutor is successful, then that will set a new low, really, for freedom of expression in Europe and specifically for Christians. But then if we turn it around and think, okay, well, what's the good news? And if victory here will set a very strong precedent in Finland and will be extremely encouraging, not only to fellow Christians who share Päivi and Bishop Juhana's beliefs, but I think for everyone, because it will strengthen the legal standard for all people, whether they agree with Päivi or not. So by the time we're now at the Supreme Court, the stakes are extremely high. And as we see in many other areas in terms of the globalization of law and policy, what happens in one place doesn't stay there. And so it will have an impact beyond the borders one way or another.
Thank you very much, Paul, for that analysis. We will now turn to opening the floor for questions from journalists. So you are welcome to raise your hand, and please introduce yourself briefly with your name and the outlet that you represent, and also who you are addressing the question to. And yes, I see the first person here is Julian Mann. So I will allow you to talk. You must still unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Thank you.
And ask your question.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. My name's Julian Mann. I'm a stringer for various, Conservative Woman, Daily Skeptic, possibly Christian Today. There's a new United States administration, which is very strong on free speech. If, and perhaps you could also indicate when a judgment is likely to come, but if hopefully not, but if the court was stupid enough to convict Dr. Räsänen and Bishop Pohjola, what on earth is that going to do to Finland's standing? This is neo-Marxist nonsense, and one would think that the American administration, particularly Secretary Rubio, would be absolutely appalled. And the Finland's just going to make themselves pariahs, aren't they, if they go down this route with this new administration? I just wonder what, I don't know whoever would like to sort of offer some thoughts on this, as you know, Finland's standing in the world, really.
So perhaps,
Perhaps Mrs. Räsänen.
all right, yes, go ahead. Päivi, you're welcome to answer the question.
Okay, if I start, and perhaps I think that Matti is better to continue then, but if it happens that the Supreme Court gives a conviction, found us guilty, finally, I think that it would be a very, very bad precedent in our society. It would really restrict these fundamental freedoms, freedom of speech and freedom of faith in Finnish society. It would make because I'm not the only one in Finland who has written this kind of about these kind of issues. There are thousands of similar sermons and writings and books and interviews in TV and radio and so on. So it would mean that there would be a lot of bans against many writings, and people would be in danger to be put to similar kind of process where I have been over 6 years. And also it would happen also in other European countries, because I believe that, for example, the LGBT advocates, they are also following this case, and perhaps they would raise similar kind of criminal complaints against very classical Christian teachings that are published.
Thank you very much, Päivi. Matti, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I would say that the ramifications would be national, mainly, and maybe on a European scale as well. This would be a case that would, well, this will probably be a case that will be referred to in other European countries. As to the ramifications in relation to the United States, I don't think the judges ponder that topic at all. I don't think that's something that they'll make their decision regardless of what the United States administration thinks. But hopefully we win, and maybe it will be a positive that way.
I think if I could just chime in, it is worth just highlighting what Julian said, that Senator Rubio, now Secretary of State Rubio, has been supporting this case for many years. And it is it's a very unusual thing to have the Secretary of State chiming in on a case that's unfolding in another Western nation. And so who knows what the ramifications would be of a defeat, but I think it does show that the case has attracted global attention. And it is worth pointing out that even in the recent past, Rubio and others have been offering support and speaking out. The US State Department recently as well, through the official State Department online platform. And so the eyes of the world are on this. And I think that, of course, Matti's right. It's not that the judges will make their decision as a result of that, but it certainly goes to show what an important case it is and how unusual it is to have such high-ranking government officials from other nations weighing in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
But
Matti, can I just direct the following question to you? Could you please give us a brief summary of the content of the arguments of both sides in the Supreme Court today? This is especially for those who couldn't follow because it was all in Finnish.
Well, yes. I think if we think about it from an international perspective, the main arguments, or the most interesting from the prosecutor had to do with the writing of the criminal paragraph that this is about. It's the prosecutor claims that it is what is called a prohibition norm, and this would mean that the court's job is not to assess any potential harm in the speech, but rather see whether it is whether the speech is something you can categorize as hate speech. If so, then it's illegal, and then there's criminal consequences for it. And well, the paragraph is poorly written, so I think in some sense, the prosecutor does have a point there. But this would mean that if the court would accept this argument, line of arguments, harmless speech would be criminalized. And so that's what's at stake. If we were to lose, or if the court would accept the prosecutor's arguments. Now, the problem with that is that the European Convention doesn't really allow harmless speech to be criminalized. That's a step too far. And so I would say that this is one point, one major point of debates in the courts. We've got much more, but that's one of the probably most interesting points.
Thank you very much. Just one more brief follow-up question. Can you give us a bit of a timetable or prognosis of when you think we can expect a ruling?
If I have to guess, probably sometime in the spring of next year. But it all depends on the workload of the justices, and we didn't receive a date for the ruling, so we don't know, but I guess probably spring 2026.
All right, thank you very much. Päivi, there was a question for you where it said, have you officially left the Lutheran Church? Maybe you can just briefly answer this.
No, I have not left. I have to admit that I have thought a lot about it, because our main church, the main Lutheran church, is nowadays, by its leadership, it is very progressive. The leadership of the church and the bishops, for example, they are promoting the same-sex marriages and so on. But there, inside the church, we have many conservative organizations that are acting quite independently. We have our own Sunday services, own pastors, and so on. But this is a very difficult issue just now, and when this process started, in fact, it started so that I was praying that should this be just now the time when I resigned the church, but I have felt that I still try to speak inside the church and try to bring there this biblical view, at least this time, so long as this process is going on.
All right, thank you very much, Päivi. Paul, could you briefly just explain again what the prosecutor is demanding, the censorship part and the part of the fine, and who's supposed to pay the fine?
Well, the demand, I mean, I think it's worth highlighting that the section of the criminal code that Päivi and Bishop Juhana are being prosecuted under can carry prison sentences up to 2 years in prison. And although that's not being asked for in this case, it's still worth highlighting. So what is being asked for in this case is that they essentially censor what they have said by taking down, deleting the tweet taking down from availability the booklet where it's being hosted online, and essentially deleting, censoring the things that they have said. And then in addition to that, a €10,000 fine to the foundation that Bishop Juhana represents that published the booklet, and then fines for Päivi as well.
Thank you for explaining that. Maybe we can switch to Matti again. CNE News asks, it was their impression that much of the content from the prosecutor was about the pamphlet this time. Is that impression correct? And what does that say about the tweet?
I think that's correct. There's at least 2 points to be made. Well, the pamphlet is much longer. It's 26-page document. So there's much more to be said about the pamphlet than the tweet. And then also, I think that it is easier for the prosecutor to argue against the pamphlet than the tweet, because the tweet focuses so much on the Bible. And so let's put it this way: if I were the prosecutor, I'll probably speak more on the pamphlet as well, because of these reasons. It's very, I think the arguments against the tweets in this sense are much weaker. It's easier to criticize or find material from a long pamphlet than a tweet that is basically just a picture of the Bible and 2 sentences. I think that's probably the reason.
Thank you very much, Matti. Maybe this one back to Paul. So Tichys Einblick asks, how do you explain the determination of the prosecution to continue this case, even though the defendants have been acquitted twice?
Well, it's hard to explain. I mean, I think that, part of it is that it's a novel area of law. The criminal law in Finland hasn't been applied on biblical speech like this before, and so one could argue that the prosecutor wants to push this forward because it's a new and novel way to apply the law. I think that the way that we see these hate speech cases working across Europe is what we often say is that the process becomes the punishment. And so in that sense, the existence of the hate speech law and the threat of being dragged through a lengthy process like this acts as a deterrent and creates a chilling effect for others who might dare to speak and share their opinions as well. And so it's my view that dragging out a case like this, it will move into 7 years by the time it's done here in Finland, is in a sense a deliberate strategy, because it creates a self-censorship potentially of many other people who are watching on and don't want to go through a 7-year process for a tweet and then decide to just keep quiet, to say nothing, to not share their views, their opinions and their beliefs. And so in that sense, the process is the punishment for Päivi and Bishop Juhana, and the process is also the deterrent for everyone else watching on. It's a very effective way, I think, to try and censor a population, because they can't possibly have the resources to go after every tweet that everyone says. In Päivi's case, she's been in public office for 30 years, so they had the unlimited resources of the state to go through 3 decades of everything she's ever said, every opinion she's ever given. And I think that no one can police that much speech, even in a situation like we're seeing now. And so targeting high-profile people, dragging them through court for 7 years, I think operates as a very effective deterrent to have everyone else self-censor.
Thank you very much. Päivi, another question for you. How did you feel in court today and during all the trials? And did you sense a lot of support among friends, colleagues, the public, or rather the opposite?
Yes, this has been a very long process, and this was now third time to be heard, to be questioned in court. I would say that this day was it was different to compared with the Court of Appeal and the District Court. Perhaps I would say that the prosecutors were more aggressive in the District Court and Court of Appeal, and now we had new prosecutors in this trial. But of course, again, the same issues were on stake. I have very calm and confident feeling. I have felt all the time from the beginning that this process has been in God's hands, and I trust that He will bring this to the end, whatever the result will be. I believe that this is in His hands. Yes.
Thank you very much. Then next, there's a question for Bishop Juhana Pohjola. So could you talk briefly about the support you and Dr. Räsänen have received from other Christian groups and church bodies in Finland, and what about internationally?
Yes, if we think about some good sides of this long process, that has been bringing Christians together. So I have personally received so much support from International Lutheran Council and from many church bodies all over the world, from many different continents. I have been invited to speak in Australia, and North America, South America, Europe, and Africa. I know Mrs. Räsänen, she has been many more times going all around. So it has brought attention that this is not a self-evident matter to have a freedom of speech and religion. So it's a gift, and it's something worth fighting for, and it's bringing us closer to the Word of God and a common prayer. And I hope that this case has been an encouragement for many Christians, that they would, in their vocation, in their lives, say the words that I said today in the court. I am a Christian. This is what church has always believed, and that's what I believe. And we need the sense that to say publicly that I'm a Christian. I'm not ashamed of it, but this is what I believe, and that this is what I want to share with you. And if this is something that we can be together with Päivi encourage others, I think this is really serving in a good way God's purpose.
Thank you very much for that encouraging answer. Matti, another question for you from the European Conservative. Is the prosecutor's lack of questions or arguing in the abstract perhaps an indication that the court would like this case to just go away after a long and very public 6-year battle? Do you think that is the case?
I think there's probably some truth to that. The prosecutor has changed, and I had the sense that this prosecutor would probably not have charged Päivi Räsänen for these crimes. So who knows? It's fully possible that his passivity was a kind of a sign that he wasn't as motivated as the previous prosecutor. And it's also very likely that their main argument to continuing the case is to have the Supreme Court rule over this case so that they'll know how this law is applied in this field, just like Coleman said, moments, just a few moments ago.
Thank you very much for your answer. Lifle Maheu, would you like to ask your question? Yeah, you're welcome to ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Leif Lemahue. I'm a reporter with the Daily Wire. My question is for Ms. Räsänen. Could you discuss a little more details about the 13-hour interrogation? I'm curious to hear what kind of stuff they're asking you about and what that experience was like. And I'm also kind of wondering if there's anything specific that prompted them to go after you. Have politicians posted Bible verses before, or were you the first one? I guess you just talk about those issues a little bit. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have to say that the interrogation by police, which took over 13 hours, it was 3 times and 13 hours. It was a very, very absurd and surreal experience. I was sitting in a small room in police station. I had the Bible on the table, and the police was asking me very theological questions. He was asking me to tell that what is the message of the book of Romans, what is the message of its first chapter. I had to explain that what the concept of sin means and what the concept of shame means in the Bible, and the police even read aloud these verses from the Bible, from the book of Romans, first chapter and 24 to 27, where Apostle Paul teaches about same-sex relationships, and asked me that do I agree with this, and asked me to explain these verses. In fact, at that time, there was in our social media in Finland, there was a joke that Päivi Räsänen is once again going to have a Bible study on the police station. But I had just some years before these interrogations, I had been a Minister of Interior in Finland. I had been the boss of the police and visited the police station as a minister. And then I was interrogated, which in a way that reminded me about these times when Christians were interrogated in Soviet Union, for example, for their Christian beliefs or having Bibles and so on. Those stories that I had heard from these communist countries. So I was so shocked that something like that could happen in Finland, in a country that has long roots in Christianity and rule of law and freedom of speech and faith. So and each time the police in the end of the interrogation they asked me or they gave me 2 weeks time to delete these writings and apologize what I have said. I said that I do not apologize what Apostle Paul has stated, because it's not my opinion, it is what the Word of God says. Yes, but it was really absurd situation, and in fact similar kind of questioning continued, especially in the Helsinki District Court by the state prosecutor.
Thank you very much, Päivi, for giving us a little insight into that. Evert van Vlastuin from CNE, would you like to go ahead and ask your question? You're unmuted, but I'm afraid we can't hear you. All right, we appear not to be able to hear you, but you're welcome to post your question in the chat. Then I will turn to another question here regarding the third charge. So the question is, what happened to the third point of accusation, the radio interview on Yle in 2018? Yeah, but Paul, would you like to explain briefly?
Sure. So yes, good observation. So this was won at the district court. This Päivi was acquitted of this charge and then was acquitted again at the Court of Appeal. And then the prosecutor decided not to appeal that acquittal. And so only 2 of the 3 charges relating to Päivi moved forward. But I think what it goes to show is how arbitrary these hate speech charges are, because there were other things that the police investigated that they decided not to charge her with at all. And then they charged her with 3 things. And then of those 3, they only carried 2 forward. And I think if you're an outside observer, you have no way of knowing what's criminal and what's not criminal. And the way that the criminal law is meant to function is that citizens are meant to be able to regulate their behavior so that they know whether they're committing an offense or not. I know whether I'm stealing something or not. I don't have to be a legal expert to know that. I know if I am assaulting someone physically. I don't have to be a legal scholar to know that. But when it comes to these hate speech laws and how they're applied in Finland and across Europe, no one has any idea whether they're breaking the law or not. And it's quite clear that no one in this case has any idea what's legal and not legal, because the police spent all this time interrogating Päivi and then recommended that no crime had been committed. The prosecutor overrode that and then decided that it had, and then took some of these charges forward and not others. And so even the so-called experts don't really seem to have an idea of what people are allowed to say and what they're not allowed to say. And the fact that the prosecutor dropped one of these charges midway through the process, I think proves that point.
Thank you very much for explaining that. I think going along those lines, this question from CNE for Matti. So Matti, you said that it was easier to speak about the booklet than the tweet, but the tweet was always at the very core of this case, wasn't it? So the booklet and the radio program were side issues. What does it say about the prosecution if the side issues are easier?
I think that the tweet has been obviously the focus of attention in the public. But from the prosecutor's perspective, I think that the pamphlets and the tweets are as important charges. So I wouldn't say that the main that there's a main charge in the prosecutor's charges. I just the tweet is just it's just more publicity worthy, I guess, because it's so clearly a charge concerning a picture of the Bible. So it's unique in European legal practice, and so it can't really be compared to any other place because of this tweet.
Thank you very much. And at this point, I would just like to make everyone aware that Matti's book comes out tomorrow. He has actually written a book that's called "You Can't Say That" about this case. So yeah, you can look this up, and it's in Finnish, but I'm sure there's translations going to be available soon. And then, yeah, you can find more details about the case in Matti's book. So happy also to share that. I also wanted to mention that we have pictures from today. So I'm very happy to send the link to anyone. So feel free to reach out to me just, yeah, via our website at ADF International. And I don't see any more open questions. So at this point, I would just like to invite Paul to briefly just share some closing words regarding the case.
Yeah, thank you, Sophia, and thank you everyone for joining for this. What we hope will be the last stage in the very long process that has unfolded now for the last 6.5 years. And so I think that, gosh, as I think about how to close this out, I suppose I give my own reflection on what a surreal experience it has been to sit in these various different trials over the last number of years, and have the full arsenal of the state deployed against citizens for their beliefs, for their opinions, for their views. And I just encourage everyone to reflect on what it would be like to have the state using all of the resources available to it to go through 30 years of everything you've ever said, everything you've ever written, everything you've ever discussed with anyone, and take 30 years and then pull out a word here and a word there and ask you, hey, 20 years ago, why did you say that word? 20 years ago, why did you have that opinion? And that's what has been at the heart of this case. And that's what we spent hours today at the Supreme Court of Finland talking about, taking Päivi's 30 years in public office and then going in our little time machine back in time and asking her why she used certain words 2 decades ago. None of us could withstand this sort of interrogation. And that is why these laws are so dangerous, because ultimately, once these hate speech laws are passed, then all of our beliefs, opinions, everything we hold dear could find itself before the court, before the police, before a prosecutor, and being held up as hate speech. So we hope for and pray for victory in this case, not just for Päivi and Bishop Juhana, but for everyone, for everyone's right to live and speak freely.
Thank you very much for that closing legal analysis. And it only seems right that I would actually give the last word to Päivi. So maybe you could just let us know, what would you want those who have supported you to know today?
I'm extremely thankful and grateful to all those who have supported me and Juhana and also these legal teams, ADF and Matti. And I have to say that even though this process has been long, and of course there have been also dark moments during these years, but my main experience is that I have got much more joy than any troubles during these years. So I think that God has been so good to turn bad things to good things. And I have to tell that I have had especially big joy for that there have been many people, many persons, especially young people, who have told that through this process, by following this case and these interviews, they have started to read Bible, or they have prayed even Jesus to come their life, and have found the promises of eternal life to themselves. This has happened also to some LGBT background people. So I think that it has not been in vain to defend freedom of speech and freedom of faith during these years. It has not been in vain also to speak publicly about these biblical issues that are so important also in our time. This whole process started from the Twitter update that I made, and that's why it has been quite much on focus of this case. But after that, when it came into public, then people started to seek and find other possible words that can be brought to police and to courts. So I think that the main issue, the main question in this whole process is the heart of this trial is the question of whether teachings related to Bible can be presented and whether it is still permissible to agree with the Bible even when they contradict the main ideology of the society. So I think that this whole process is shared by a very, very big amount of people, and that's why we have got a lot of support and a lot of prayers, and it has been a privilege to face this process with these wonderful people who are now speaking with me, and we shall continue. So thank you so much for your support and prayers, and also you journalists, I want to thank for your attention to this case. It is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Päivi. Thank you all for your thoughtful questions and for joining us today. This case is being closely followed around the world because its outcome will help define the boundaries of free speech and freedom of religion in democratic societies. So if you would like to request follow-up interviews or receive updates, feel free to contact me. I put my email in the chat, or anyone else from the ADF International Media team. I also added a link where you can find photos from today that you can use with credit to ADF International. And so, on behalf of Dr. Räsänen, Bishop Pohjola, and the entire legal team, thank you once again for your time and your interest. And this concludes today's press conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.